Hey there guys, what's up? It's Too Tall Tom here. It's been a very long time since I've made a video, and I decided what better way to start off the new year than to make a video talking about a new Dark Souls mod that just came out with the new year. So the mod is called Daughters of Ash. I'll make my best effort to put a link to the Nexus mod in the description below. I'm usually not that good at making YouTube videos, so I'll do my best to remember that, and I'm gonna do this all in one take because I've got Sony Vegas and I don't really know how to edit that. I've always been a pleb that's used Windows Movie Maker, so it's gonna take some time to actually, you know, if I put in the effort getting used to an editing software that actually is good. So anyway, regardless, it's not what we're talking about today. The thing I wanted to talk to you about is my thoughts on this mod, Daughters of Ash. Now, it's gonna be some footage in the background of me playing it because I am playing it live while I'm just recording this, just to make things a little bit easier and have some footage that actually does um, resonate with what I'm saying. So, uh, a little bit about this mod. It's a mod that was, from what I understand, it was created by one person. That may be wrong, uh, but it basically, in a sense, is like a free version of like Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin. It changes um, enemy locations. It changes uh, well, Scholar of the First Sin didn't really change bosses that much, but this one does change certain bosses. It changes routes through the game, and it puts in some unused items as well. Or actually, I don't know if it's unused items. There's definitely some things I've seen in here that I've not seen in the base game. Now, it's definitely I'm you know I do have some complaints about the mod. Now I'm gonna say that this is definitely more complex than anything that I would ever be able to create. Well, unless I perhaps took some type of courses and stuff to actually learn the coding and whatnot. But even still, it's a monumental task that this person has overcome to bring this change, and in an era where AAA video games have been using any tactic they can in order to get as much money as they possibly can. It's really impressive that someone like this can come out and make a mod like this for the community and let it be free. Like that's I have so much, so much respect to you author. If you ever happen to be one of the 10 viewers of this video, props to you. Uh, don't let anyone tell you that you're wasting your time, because you're an asset to the community. Um, and I honestly, although I'll admit ahead of time that I did quit the mod about halfway. I would think is halfway through. I don't know because I didn't beat it. I'm maybe right now I'm thinking of possibly giving it one more fair shot with maybe a different type of build, because perhaps it's just the build that I was doing. But I found the one downside, or one of the downsides I found, was that there's some artificial difficulty when it comes to the enemy placement and whatnot. I don't want to go too far into detail because people who may be watching this may be just wanting some impressions videos, and they don't exactly, want the whole thing to be spoiled. So just for respect to them, I'm not going to go into the details of what changes, and there's some issues. I'm trying to think of how to kind of say them without fully spoiling them. Let's say it like this, because there's obviously, as you can see with me going through the asylum, the mod does work off the previous established areas, but basically I had gotten to the painted world, which that's what I mean by I was approximately halfway, and my issue was that okay. Anyway, it was, stuff like that I can accept, because I mean it's, you're creating a giant mod for a game that's already been created, so I can only imagine the amount of hoops you have to jump through and how difficult it is to adapt that. But anyway, my issue was is that and if you're listening, mod creator, look into the Painted World bonfire that you set, because as of right now, one enemy respawns on it, and then two enemies fly into it. So bonfires are supposed to be like a safe area in this game, and that's where I was kind of surprised, and I don't know if it's maybe some difficulty with the scripting of the game. Like if it makes it incredibly difficult to remove that, I can definitely understand, because it seemed like potentially an oversight, because I hadn't ran into this type of issue with any of the other bonfires in the game. Now, I don't know when it gets to like, some of the later areas like Duke's Archives and whatnot, and that's why I don't know if I would say that this is a well, I wouldn't say that this is a review of the mod, because it's not fair to fully review the mod until you've completed the game at least once, going through Artorias of the Abyss and all the DLC, because you put in a lot of effort with all this. So it's I think it's understandable to want to have people explore the whole thing before giving like concrete thoughts on whether the mod is good or bad. There's definitely some things that can do with some improving. One of the major issues I have is that in the base game, the upgrades for like weapons, now of course it takes you all the way to like the parish before you start upgrading your weapons, and it's pretty much the same here. Although if you're someone who used a lot of magic builds in the base game, then you would know that there would be the blacksmith you can go in Anor Londo to kind of get a head start on all that kind of stuff. So that is one other side where it's like, yeah, it is a decent way in the beginning in order to get to your regular Andre the Blacksmith to upgrade your weapons. But my main issue is that, and now this may be just because I may have overlooked it, but I had gotten through the Undead Burg, the Darkroot Garden, Blighttown. I feel as though I'm missing another area, but I'd gotten through all those areas and I'd not yet found even just the Large Ember. Now, in the original game, the base game, the game's balanced around that more so. Like I noticed it a lot when you start getting into later areas, and the amount of damage you're doing starts to really kind of put a damper on things, because in the normal progression, you'd get to the Undead Parish, and the Bell Gargoyles, unless, obviously, there's no true DPS check, because people have, Zero Lenny, for example, has beaten the game with a broken sword. There's many people, myself included, who've beaten the game as a soul level 1. I'm sure you'd be able to find people, whether it's, popular streamers that have probably done the game just with their fists, doing no hits. Like, the game's definitely built in a way that as long as you persevere, you can overcome it. And it's going to be very difficult, and that this mod does speak to that aspect of it as well. The only issue I have is that it's in some points in the game, based on enemy placement, does go more into the realm of artificial difficulty than an actual challenge. And it almost seems like the mod could be more properly balanced if, and again, this is where it really starts getting complex for mod creators, I can imagine. But like, if you could have a summon partner, I think it would probably equal out a lot of the difficulty in the game, because like eventually you get to a point where you're, even if you've fully upgraded your weapon, you're still only with a +5 weapon, which is still, I liken it kind of like to the Drake sword, where it's, if you're going through areas like this place, or some of the earlier areas, Darkroot Garden, whatnot, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you're not gonna be really struggling with a +5 weapon. However, as you get further on, Blighttown, stuff like that, where you're fighting a lot of harder enemies, the trolls, stuff like that, you should have that Large Ember by then, because on your way from on your way from the depths to Blighttown, that's where you get the Ember. So and again, I haven't fully, I'm not saying that I'm any expert, and I've definitely explored everything in this mod. I may have just missed the large Ember, which is perfectly valid. But that's one of my main issues. Other than that, I found so far it's been very good. I haven't found a whole lot of bugs. There's some bugs with the Asylum Demon. I don't know this. I actually don't know if this is like intentional, but it seems I can consistently get the floor to break on the Asylum Demon before the trek back. So a lot of times you can actually bait the Asylum Demon to falling down below to the other demon. And it's interesting, I don't know if the mod creator did this or if this is just somehow in the programming for the base game, is that the stray demon that's under the Asylum Demon will actually kill the Asylum Demon. It doesn't see it as another demon, so it doesn't act like it's a friendly, which I found very interesting because I would have expected two demons to not fight each other, and I was even wondering if perhaps that was the intended path, is that you fight the Asylum Demon, and then at some point during the fight the floor breaks, and then you fight Asylum Demon V2. Now that could have been what the original plan was. I'm only speculating here because obviously I can't delve into the mod creator's mind. I don't know him personally. I don't know his creative process when he was creating the mod. But I imagine if he was going to do something like that, he may have felt that, okay, that's a little bit too difficult in the beginning, just because the mod, it doesn't explicitly state in the description from what I saw, but I would say it's a mod that's created for Dark Souls veterans, so that way people that have done like no-hit runs and various challenge runs, soul level 1, stuff like that, will still have a challenge with this mod, even though they have hundreds of hours, thousands of hours in some streamers' cases, probably tens of thousands of hours in the Souls series. So here's an example of an alternate route, though, which is what I find really interesting about the game, is that it really challenges. It would be interesting to see the playthrough of a person that had never played Dark Souls. I would probably argue against having them start out on a mod this difficult, but just the routing, because I know a lot of people said that they had it's one of the one of the very usual stories of people's experiences in the water seems lower than it usually is. Anyway, one of the usual experiences people have is doing this, for example, going to Firelink Shrine, exploring a bit, and then going down to New Londo. So a lot of people have the memories of running into the ghosts and not being able to hit the ghosts and dying, and then thinking the game's like really cheap, or going the opposite way, going the catacombs, going down, finding the skeletons that don't die, hopefully not getting far enough to get the bonfire and then getting stuck there. But in this mod, it's this is one of the paths that you can take early, which really challenges your preconceived notions of where to go in Dark Souls, and it does the same thing with a lot of the items. I haven't. I'm trying to think of if there's a single item that was in its original spot, other than I guess in the video earlier, the Petrus of Thorlin gear, which arguably is more it's more lore items than specific drop items, but like most stuff has been moved, which is really interesting, because then it keeps everything fresh. And I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed Dark Souls 2 Scholar: The First Sin, and I think that's probably an appropriate comparison when looking at this mod. Now, from what I understand, which I mean, this definitely makes sense, is that this mod took this individual a very long time, which, I mean, I can only imagine. I heard it was about 40,000 lines of code, and that's, you know, I think the most code I've ever written, and this was more of just when I was back in high school learning Java, was I had a blackjack program with about 3,000 lines of code, but that was just, you know, silliness as a kid, you know, multiple if statements for if these cards happen and all that, and I remember just that was, you know, it stopped being funny at the point when you had to actually error check and make sure that, you know, the syntax was there, that the line would run, that it wouldn't error out when it got to this certain combination, and like even that was just a massive hassle. Although I, you know, stuck with it because it was just, I found it pretty funny at the time. So just, you know, having it and being the person in the class too that, you know, everyone else has probably got a blackjack program, maybe 100, 200 lines of code, and then mine's, you know, astronomically, ridiculously bigger than it should be. Uh, I was always kind of that type of jokester, but that's regardless. It's the same type of thing here, where it's there's so much to it that it'd be very hard on your own to fully bug test this, and the fact that it comes out in the state that it is and that it works fairly well. There's some issues that I've found. There's one item in Blighttown that I tried to pick up, which I don't know if it was because I know the author did incorporate a lot of cut content into the mod. I don't know if it was a cut item, but I could not pick it up, and I know that I have, because I'll admit there's videos on my channel too where I've used Cheat Engine in the past with Dark Souls. Now my stance on Cheat Engine is more so that there's definitely a lot of people that use it for entertaining purposes. I don't really agree with the people that, and I even did this at a time, would go on and like purposely PvP with Cheat Engine. I did some like moveset swaps, stuff like that. When I was younger, I had like a Dark Souls like save editor. You can see one of my earlier videos as a PvP video where instead of, you know, actually going through the effort to gather the items that was required for my 46 strength build, which I do have a decent amount of PvPs. That's the Dunk Souls videos. That's where I basically picked a bandit, went up to just, I think, leveled up my strength 30 times, and then stuck at about level 36. But basically, that. Give me a moment here. But anyway, I did play at a later date on the PC, and I did find that you can, in fact, get those items and do it in a legitimate way. I mean, it's pretty much like 90% of it is luck if you get the axe off the Tauros demon right away, and then the other bit is, you know, if you didn't, then you got to go all the way till Shiva the East to get the axe. But regardless, I just wanted to make this quick video. It's definitely entertaining. I would, if you're interested in, you know, at all in getting this mod, I would definitely check it out. Especially if you have thousands of hours in the Dark Souls series, and you know you want to get back in the games, and you're depressed that, you know, there's no exclusive Dark Souls game coming out. I'd probably check this out to sate your appetite. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have a great day.